Well, welcome to the January 17th, 2023 session of TangerineSDR and Hamside Technical Session. My name is Dave, KB0S, and this week I've been doing some work on magnetometers and libraries, or not magnetometers, GPSs and libraries for GPSs, particularly to access the UBX protocols, not just the NEMA. So that's been an interesting learning experience, reading lots of technical documents to get that to work. So that's about it for me. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Dave. It's been incredibly busy here. I've been working on, one of the things I've been working on is the annual report for this project that we have to submit to the NSF. And as I said, I've sent that out to many of the people on this call. So I'm hoping during the open discussion, we can talk about that a little bit because ideally, if I could, after this call, just call it a day and submit it tonight before I go to bed, I would really love that because it's overdue as it is. Second, I know Hyomin, we're going to be having a magnetometer discussion later this week. So maybe Hyomin can talk about that a little bit and we can go over that agenda later. And then also in preparation for the HAMSI workshop, I had some of the Murgas Amateur Radio Club members, which is a nearby club to us. They helped come up with a display of amateur radio through the ages that we now have on display at the University of Scranton. And we installed that exhibit today. So this is kind of the introduction to the exhibit. And this is in the main hall of the building that I work in and teach in, where we have lots of students come through. So you can see each display case has lots and lots of QSL cards and various boat anchor equipment. And we don't have any placards out yet, but we're going to put together some little cards that identify what the different things are. And I'm going to make a poster that kind of explains the whole demonstration. I thought this was neat. So this is a QST magazine. It's actually, I cut off the year in the picture here. I'll have to take another photo. It's 1924, so almost 100 years ago. But they talk about devoted exclusively to citizen radio, which I think is really nice since we're a citizen science project. And then this one is from, March of 1925. I know they also had one that was 100 years old from 1922. So I thought that was neat. So here's some more pictures. This is the president of the Murgas Amateur Radio Club, Tom, and this is Bill, who really owns most of the equipment. And this is Dr. Darlene Lanning. She is a art history professor that runs all the gallery space. So we all work together today to install these things. And I think it came out really nicely. So hopefully when people come to the HAMSI workshop, they'll be able to see it all in person. I guess this one is 1922. That one's 1922. So that one's 100 years old. So 100 years of citizen radio. So back to net.
Very good. And let's see. Next on the list is Mike, AA8K. Go ahead, Mike. Thank you very much. I did look and was checking on the status of the Tangerine, and it's really full of MP3 recordings from all of our talks. I appreciate that. Thank you. Next on the list is Attila the Hun. Go ahead, whoever it is.
Well, hi, this is Bruce. I'm having some technical problems here. I don't seem to be able to get my camera to work. So I'm Attila the Hun. Got nothing to add at this point. I just thought I would check in and figure out some Tangerine status.
Well, thank you very much for coming, Bruce. Appreciate it. And we do a roll call and then we get around to people talking about the different projects. So next on the list is Dan in for XWE. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Dave, and good evening, everyone. I haven't been around much lately, I guess. I missed a few things around the holidays, but I'm happy to be back. One of the things I also wanted to hear about was the status of the Tangerine SDR project. I know on our TAPR list, we've had some discussion about that. And when we get to the appropriate time, I'd like to hear a little bit more about where we're at. So anyway, happy holidays, everybody. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. And next on the list is Jules, K2KGJ. Go ahead, Jules.
Good evening, everyone. Nathaniel, I just finished reading through the docx file on the report, and with regard to the magnetometer stuff, it looks, I don't have anything else to add. That looks okay. Maybe Hillman could also comment on that. So as far as I'm concerned, that looks good. Let's see, Bob N5BRG, if you were not able to get a set of boards from Scotty yet, I think he sent me actually one set of the boards along with a magnetometer that I could send to you if you haven't received anything or if you haven't been able to get in touch with them. Okay, back to Net.
Oh, okay, very good. Bob, do you want to just jump in there and give your report and answer Jules?
Yeah, good to see everyone this evening. Sure, Jules, I have not heard from Scotty, and that sounds like a great solution to me. I'll send you an email offline and send you my email address and talk about the concept of how we'll do that. Today I did some wire pulling. I set up a thing out in my field at my ranch to do sort of have this observatory, and I pulled electrical circuits there and some fiber cable and network capability to this small little kind of like doghouse sized box that I built. So I'm ready to install things and hook them up to the computers. It'll be located out there close by. And that's all I have. Back to the Net.
Very good. Sounds interesting. Next on the list, we have Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening. Well, we dodged another big bullet. Tornadoes came through Alabama last week, and once again, they went north and south of us. Most of the damage was in, and the fatalities was in Selma, which is about 75 miles south of here. So thank goodness for that we missed it. Not so lucky for them, but anyway, been working on, had a first meeting with the students for the Personal Space for the Station website development and planning some enhancements and fixes that they're going to work on now. And they're planning on attending the telco with Yeoman on Friday afternoon. So we're looking forward to that. Finishing up the write-up on how to set up a magnetometer and grape and get it integrated with the Personal Space for the Station. I was contacted by Stan Pazerski, who's leading a group up in Massachusetts. They have a bunch of grape systems which they want to convert over to digital RF. So who's to tell them they can't? I don't know. So anyway, I've included a little write-up on how to develop a either download my image or build it from scratch and get it set up and uploading to the Personal Space for the Station. So anyway, I'm going to be forwarding that to him. So maybe we'll get some more beta testers and go from there. Okay, back to Nick.
Fine business. Bill, I have one thing. I found out what was going wrong with my upload to your site. The Python, I had it outputting to a content file. And after about a week, I had a 22 million byte file. So I think I filled up the SD card. So, or something at that large point, it stopped writing properly. So I erased it, and then I sent everything to dev null. So,
well, you're green now. You're green now. So,
yeah. So, just thought I'd let you know what I found, and what I did. If
Yeah,
you
I
need
would
me
go-
to get the data off, I can turn it back on and collect data from the output of the Python, but it probably outputs more than we need once you are happy with it.
Yeah, okay, by the way, I mean, we are making plans to ingest all the data from the Linode as well. I've
Okay.
told students to develop a plan for that as well, so. But
I-
there's a
I-
bunch of folks who are uploading to Linode where they don't have an account on the personal space weather station, so everybody who wants to participate needs to create an account on this personal space weather station network site. So for me to be able to ingest their data from the Linode site, so.
Yes, I am currently doing both myself.
Right.
So, but I have like 2 years worth of data on the other side. So, okay, next on the list, we have, let's see, Bill. Oh, David, N1 HAC. Go
Good
ahead,
evening,
David.
everyone. Very quite varied week, and of course we've had a hiatus here for over the holidays, but yeah, let's see, we've got some other radio stuff going. Of course, I'm working on humans, the Antarctic project there, and we've got some Dartmouth projects moving along. We have a new rocket that is going to be running radio on it. Don't know how involved I'll be, but I was helping in the proposal, running 150 megahertz down to look at the Faraday rotation as a measure of total electron content. We're going to see if that works. Was able to mod a little board for Dave.
Yes.
To move ahead on things. And we had a little excitement in our local radio club. Our repeater hasn't been doing well, and we're not allowed to climb the tower by the owner's new management. It's actually public television, but new people in charge, they won't let us climb the tower, so we had to hire a crew to go up and change out some jumpers because we lost contact with some of our antennas. So we were standing around for a day in the cold and waiting for these guys, working with these guys up on the tower. But we were successful. Things have improved, and life is good. Oh, and we got another quarter inch of slop today. Quarter inch of little ice balls called sleet. So I bet beats what's going on the West Coast, but we're getting our share of precipitation.
Dave, curious if you can mention it. What did you have to pay for the tower climbers?
We paid them $2,000 for 2 people for the day.
Yeah, we have the same problem here because we're at a cell site, and it's the rate's going to be about $2,600.
Yep, that's probably for the course, and they had to go up and down twice, so they get their money. Back to Ned.
Okay, next on the list, let's see, Hillman, KD2 MCR. Go ahead, Hillman.
Yep, good evening, everyone. Things here have been very hectic. I was away for a while. I came back and beginning of the new semester, probably Nathaniel has the same situation. Beginning of the new semester, I'm teaching 2 courses and a lot of submissions overdue. So I'm completely swamped. Speaking of the magnetometer data portal discussion that we are planning on Friday, yes, I have drafted some agenda that we have that we'll be discussing. The main purpose is to currently the magnetometer data temporarily are being sent to a server that Dave Witten is operating, but that wasn't really meant to be a permanent mode of operation. So we want to migrate the data that we have already archived into Dave Witten's server to the new data server that Bill Engelke is now running. That's one thing. The other thing is to develop some kind of, user-friendly interface so that, any user can log into the system, download data, or display data real time so that they can take a look at what's going on in the magnetometer data. For example, as Dave Mega mentioned, a couple of days ago we had a storm. Let's take a look at the magnetometer data. Then we can do that kind of stuff if we are able to process and download data quasi or real time, quasi real time or real time. So that's another agenda. One thing that I need to mention is that Nathaniel, our student Hamid, is computer science and he is extremely good. So I'm really happy to have him. The only problem is that since he's doing TA, he's not supposed to be paid as an RA, which is kind of, and nowadays, I don't know if it's a new thing or not, but students don't really do research without getting paid. I wish they are passionate enough to do things like voluntarily out of their own will, because this is not for money, but for their own curiosity and enthusiasm. But I cannot really force them to work. So I'm actually working to have another CS student right now. So I'm interviewing another person. So hopefully he can. I'm guessing Hamid will be joining, but we don't really know whether we can have him. But it'd be great if we can have him. He's extremely good. In every aspect. So I really love to have him. He's been really productive. So anyways, that's one thing.
Hopefully that works out. Is there anyone that I should be adding to the personnel for the report for the grant?
Not at the moment. You can add him because he's been working on this project before.
Okay. Okay.
During the break.
You put, all right. So do I just put him as a graduate research assistant?
Yes.
And then how many months over the last year would you say he worked?
I would say like 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I'll just add him. Yeah. I'll add him down as that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. During the official semester, when he is working as a TA, he's not supposed to be working on something other than TA. So of course, students are free to do whatever they want to do, but payment and payroll and that kind of stuff, things get a little bit weird. Second items, I really like to thank Dave Witten and Jules here for their contribution for the paper. I'm working on the paper. Simply, I'm merely just putting all these things together right now. We are adding stuff into the Hardware X magnetometer paper right now. I have lots of things to digest at the moment. So hopefully I can massage this text and then send it to you, Nathaniel, so that you can take a look at. I'm a little bit overwhelmed because this is very technical. It's all about like engineering details. So I'll see what I can do. But Jules has contributed to this text a lot, and then Dave Witten also added some text for the run meg software. So I'm trying to massage this text so that it reads much more professionally. So that's what I'm doing right now. So back to Nat.
Oh wait, Hyomin, for him, what do I put down as a funding source?
You mean for the student that I talked about? Mm-hmm. Funding source is the HAMS.
This grant.
Yes, this grant. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
I have one more question, Hillman. Are you still working on the documentation of how to put in the tube, or is that document done?
You mean the installation?
How to install a magnetometer?
Yeah, that's
Not
written up.
at
Is
the
that
moment.
Is that in the hardware paper?
I am sort of going to mention maybe one section can be devoted to like how to install it, but I try not to go into too much of detail.
Okay.
But yes, yeah,
Well,
I mean, how to install should be there too. Yeah, yes.
You can find it on, yeah, you can find it in the GitHub repository now. It's on the repository.
Okay. Good.
So what I'm trying to do is, yeah, we already have lots of information in the GitHub repository, so we can cite that location,
Yes.
but we can briefly mention some of the discussions in the paper. Yep.
Well, this is important to some of the TAPR board members that are here.
Oh, sure, sure, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Next on the list is, let's see, where were we? Joe, are you still here, Joe?
Yes, I am.
LUX?
Yes, definitely am. And it's a winter wonderland here, and kind of had my hands full, which means, unfortunately, the grape is on null because the equipment, the antennas and things are needed for emergency communications. We have 2 feet of snow on the ground, another foot predicted for tonight and tomorrow. The power is out to the repeaters up on our local mountaintop. And it's just been a mess. And I'm kind of getting tired of relocating snow. So like I say, I've got our hands full here and kind of taking a break and letting my arms recover a little bit. But we're getting what snuck past California. Anyway, that's probably more than enough from Flagstaff, Dave.
Okay, very good. Next on the list is the other Joe. Joe KM1P. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to put myself in the curious onlooker category at this point. My main motivation is I'm working with the Blue Hill Meteorological Observatory just south of Boston. And they have, the management there has contacted us to form a ham radio club to celebrate the long history of ham radio at the site there. In fact, it's not known. Of course, I believe it remains the North American wind speed record on Mount Washington. Actually had the raw data was sent via what was 5 meters at the time, when 5 meters was a ham band, to Blue Hills Observatory, where it was actually converted into a measurement. In any case, we've been, the observatory is in a big renovation project right now, and the thought is to expand traditional atmospheric measurements with space weather. So we've got ideas about adding perhaps a WWV receiver, and I didn't realize you folks were involved with a magnetometer. Those things are potentially something that would be very interesting for the observatory. So I'll be keeping an eye on what you guys were up to see how we can implement it after the observatory itself reopens to the public this coming May.
Very good. Well,
Joe, I'm wondering, are you
ahead.
working with New England SciTech on that?
I sure am. Yep.
Very good. I know them well.
Yeah. So the nascent Blue Hills Wireless Society has a large overlap with the SciTech Amateur Radio Society.
Right. Very good. That's very exciting.
Yeah, and just for the wider group, if you're not familiar, New England SciTech is a active makerspace in Natick, Massachusetts, just outside Boston. that's run by K5TEC, and he integrates ham radio and those concepts for enrichment for mostly middle school and high school kids, but some college too.
Yeah, and Blue Hill Observatory is just south of Boston. Very long-standing weather observatory. I used to actually be a member at one time.
Very
Careful, you're on my recruiting list now, David.
Oh dear.
So let's go on down the list. Next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan. Can we get Jonathan, or is he, did anybody see anything on the chat?
No.
Maybe he can't get his,
Still muted.
yeah. Well, we'll come back to him if he gets it figured out. Next on the list is Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave. Dave doesn't have any voice either. So I guess he doesn't want to talk. And next on the list, we have Michael, AC0G. Go ahead, Michael. I'm glad to see you're back on the air on Whisper.
Yeah, I'm gradually getting things ironed out. I'm in the process of reconstructing what I deconstructed in my ham shack several weeks ago while we were having some construction going on. So that's mostly what I'm been in the middle of, reconstructing some computers, getting antenna cable runs squared away and grounded and so on and so forth. So back to net.
Fine business. And next on the list, we have Scotty. Let's give him a try. He said he had computer problems, but go ahead. Can you hear us, Scotty? No signal at this point. So he can hear, but no speak. Okay, well, next on the list, we have Tom in 5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, good evening, Dave, everyone on the group. First thing, I read over the report that you wrote, Nathaniel. No changes there. It looks good. The part on TangerineSDR, I think, is reasonably good. So
I basically copy and pasted what you wrote and sent to me. So, and okay. Same thing with Yeoman. So, all those emails you sent back in December, I did go back and use. So, thank you.
Okay. If I disagreed with it, then I'd just be disagreeing with myself. So that would be fine. I pushed up one code change. I've bundled the peripheral initializers into a module. Currently in the test software, you have to trigger module initialization by sending LHDE commands. And there's a lot of initializers that need to be default. And for example, programming the synthesizer on the clock module. So that's all automatic now. And there's a list of initializers that will bring that up. I'm starting to work on a set of slides on how to bring up a TangerineSDR with a dev kit and a data engine adapter. And at the very high level, I've got it down to about 100 bullets, each of which is like install CentOS 7, install Quartus, make it work. And then the next bullet, and then the next bullet. And so it's going to be a pretty long, involved process. And I'm trying to think through the best way to do that. It could either be a horrendous Word document, which I kind of feel no one's going to read, PowerPoint slides, which I'm sure no one's going to read. And maybe I'll try to do slides and perhaps a couple of YouTube videos on how to bring it up. And maybe that'll be a little easier. the bring up has really got two pieces. One of which is for folks who've got the hardware but don't really want to rewrite the Verilog or C code. That's a lot more straightforward process. You have to get the Quartus up and the Neos Eclipse software up so that you can download and run the code, but it's pretty straightforward. For developers who want to actually change things, then it gets a bit more complicated. So I'll look at trying to get a couple of those up. First things first, I'm trying to improve my computer audio. And so I dug in some better mics and things like that, but I've got my software here for recording only understands USB audio. And so analog audio, I think, is out. So I may have to acquire a few microphone to USB things and directional mics. But anyway, that's the plan. So back to Ned.
Well, fine business. Have you been getting much rain?
We have been getting rain, but it's not horrendous. The rainfall seems to stop about 100 miles south of here in California.
Yeah.
So we've been getting wind, and more wind, but moderate amounts of rainfall.
Well, hopefully you are on high ground.
Yeah, it's not bad in Oregon, at least this part. I think up in Portland, they've had quite a bit of rain, but we've been in somewhat of a rain shadow.
Okay. And so that's about it for, I've called on everybody at least once. Does anybody who hasn't spoken want to speak before we go to general discussion? Hearing nothing, I'm going to open for general discussion.
I want to make one more announcement that I forgot to make earlier. I made good progress on the Ham Radio Club at the University of Scranton last Tuesday. So we officially, I had the antenna contractor, the engineering firm, the electrician and physical plant, and myself all meet together in one room, went over all the documents. The antenna contractor, everyone agreed on everything. The antenna contractor signed the contract. I got the vice president of finances for the university to sign the contract. So it's officially signed. And then I signed the invoice to say, yes, you can issue the check to start the contract going. So if everything goes right, the goal is to have it done by June 30th. So, we're making progress. They can start ordering things now. So it's a big step.
Good.
Has Scotty gotten his microphone to work?
He said he has audio, but no mic.
No mic.
Is what he said in the chat. I don't know if he has anything he wants to type in the chat.
Did you get James?
Oh, did we miss James? We did. James, KG4 DSG. Got any comments?
Nobody misses James. I'm just here listening in tonight, evening, Dave and the group. Not much to report, and good to see Scotty in there, but sorry to see we can't hear him. So back to the net.
He put some comments in that can't be read over the air.
So,
Scotty, maybe you can type, how is the testing of the data engines, the real data engines coming? This is now kind of like at a seance.
No camera,
no mic, no USB blasters.
But he sure plays a mean pinball.
Oh, so no camera, no mic, no USB blasters, so I can't program the boards.
Ooh. Oh.
Okay. So like the USB controller on his power supplies check out, okay. I now kind of feel like I'm at a seance. So I guess Scotty, I hope that you get your USB board's controller fixed, got the test code ready, but stuck waiting to fix USB. Have you tried LSB? CW only. Okay, that makes sense.
Time for the Ouija board.
The Ouija board. I guess you could still get the information across the CW, it just might be slower. Well, thank you for the update, Scotty. I appreciate it. Yes, but better signal to noise ratio. True. Hyomin, do you want to talk about your agenda for Friday?
Well, I mean, I have already mentioned.
Yeah. But now we can get comments from Bill or from me or anyone else.
Right. I mean, the first agenda about the migration is, I think that's just very much like technical and things can be done. I think the one that we need to discuss more is regarding the agenda number 2, how to make our system more user-friendly, accessible by general public. So that's something that, I like to have feedback on. Like, I see things from my perspective, but maybe amateurs who doesn't really know much about what this is all about. I mean, you guys already know stuff, but as a general public who just try to like do things with magnetometer and then see what's going on, probably they are much more clueless. So what I see is that in the data portal service page, where you can see maybe a map of the US with dots shown. I'm sort of copying the data portal that is very popular within our community called SuperMag. We are basically doing the same way by showing the map of everywhere, basically. SuperMag is, by the way, is a magnetometer data repository that is actually run by Applied Physics Laboratory, Johns Hopkins University. We have a very great colleague named Jesper. I always fail to pronounce his last name. He's Norway. I think he's originally Norway, right? So I cannot really pronounce his last name.
I say Eurolove.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right, but it's like GJOERLEV or something.
Was he at APL?
He's at APL.
Yeah, I know Jesper.
Yeah, Jesper. He's very well-known space physicist. This is one of his remarkable projects where basically lots of magnetometer data sets. Of course, these are all professional science grade magnetometers. All of the places are being fed to this repository, and they are post-processed for quality assurance so that they can be safely publicized for scientific investigations. So you can see the hierarchical system of this project. They are also.
Do we know this person?
Yes. He is one of our professors in our department, serving as a steering committee, SuperMag. Okay. And yeah, the principal investigator, Dr. Anyone who can pronounce his name successfully, you will get credit. Yellow, I don't know.
I think it's Yerlev.
Yeah, I go by his first name, Jesper. Great guy, very knowledgeable. He is also aware of what we are doing. I believe he has also similar citizen science project with magnetometers. So he is also aware of the issues that everybody run into. For example, like how do we make sure that the magnetometer that is installed by amateurs can produce scientifically valuable data. And then we have discussed already, and then we have some action items to mitigate the problem. So that's no problem. Before doing that, we like to have our own data visualization portal where you can see some kind of map of US for now, showing small dots with maybe green meaning operational, red meaning it's there but data are not being produced or something like that. Then maybe you choose the station that you want to see and then click plot, that you can see plot for how long. For example, you can specify date and time range, then boom, you can see the data. Or you can make a stack plot. So you can choose like station number A, station number 2, station number 3, then you can see the stacked plot of those data sets. You can see more synoptic magnetic field observations over different places. Or ideally, it would be great if you can stack the radio data, HF radio data together so you can see things together. That would be ideal. But for now, we can focus on magnetometer data. So that's the agenda. The other thing that we also do in terms of magnetometer data analysis is to look at spectral contents by converting this time domain data into spectral domain, which is typically done in radio analysis. You can see spectrogram, where you can see the spectral contents over time. So instead of line plots, which is very typical way of showing magnetic field data, you can also show spectral contents. That's also helpful. That's not provided in this website, SuperMag website, but that's something that we can try. I mean, just to drive some public interest, because probably spectrogram, I think the radio, amateur radio people are much more familiar with the spectrogram format. So that's something that we can add too. So yeah, there's some technical details that we need to discuss in terms of like how to publicize this data more easily for general public. So that's the agenda basically. And then the first item, again, that's just very much technicality, how to migrate the data from here to there. So I like to have, any comments are welcome about how to make our data portal accessible, user-friendly.
I think this is all really good, human.
Yeah.
And I do think that this is going to be important for making sure that people can actually make use of this data.
Right. Yeah, I mean, also having some kind of good data repository plus display functionality can really boost general interest. Like, hey, this is my data. I'm seeing my data, and this looks really similar to others. Wow, that's exciting,
Yeah.
Is there a standard technique for doing the spectrogram? Because I wouldn't know how to really do that with magnetometer data.
There are. For right now, I would not worry about that just yet. I would focus just on time series, and we can do spectrograms later.
Correct. And then, we have standard techniques, so we can easily, we already have Python code ready, so
we can write a whole other proposal to do spectrograms.
Okay.
Okay. Like, because we're on our last year of the no cost, we're on our no cost extension for this grant. So I would say spectrograms are great, but let's make sure we can get the time series done. Let's get some of that basic plotting functionality done right. And then we should, figure out how we're going to write. Probably this year, you want to write another CEDAR or GEM grant to keep supporting this for next year, Human.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Has somebody been taking some of the existing data we're collecting on magnetometers and applied the plotting software that somebody, I think Human mentioned you had some Python programs already in hand. Have you used those to analyze some of the data we've been collecting using the existing magnetometers?
Yes, we have. I mean, I have my own Python code to read and process the data that we got from JennyJump, and then I have compared it to the existing science grade magnetometers nearby. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I have presented at the workshops to show that our ham-side magnetometers are functioning as well as the other scientific grade science grade magnetometers. So by just showing two plots side by side. So that's the level of analysis that I did so far. I haven't really done any more aggressive analysis. For now, I'm just showing the data from here, data from there, and then they're just comparable to each other. So that's the level of analysis at the moment right now. But seems like we are very happy to report that the ham-side magnetometer, including the other RM3100 magnetic sensors, are performing pretty well. Just enough to catch all these like important science space weather activities such as storm and substorm and stuff like that. The only thing is the location is, as a MI coupling researcher, I would like to see more magnetometers at higher latitude, including say Canada, Alaska, and stuff like that, because that's more susceptible to this type of activity. However, there should be a lot of different research topics that can be done in low and mid latitude.
I agree with that. I think we do need to, I think we should plan to try to do more of the mid latitude research with this particular network, because I think that's where these people are going to be. And,
well, it's also what's not covered. There's a lot of coverage, Canada and North, but
yeah, so
what's not covered is mid latitudes.
We'd really be filling in gaps here.
And this is probably a good time to be implementing it, being that things are getting more active.
Mm-hmm.
We should actually be seeing things.
There are space physicists out there who especially are interested in looking at magnetic field data collectively. They don't really look at magnetometer data at one location. They look at collectively so that they can actually reconstruct the current pattern in the ionosphere. They have to have multiple magnetometers. And what they claim right now is that there are a lot of missing gaps in the US, basically in mid latitude and low latitude.
And that's something we can really help out with.
Yeah, same thing with SuperDarn, that they've discovered that there's actually a lot of information at mid latitudes.
Yeah. And I guess some history for people. David McGaw brings up a really good point. SuperDarn was originally installed in Canada, looking into the auroral zone, because it's a super dual auroral radar network. And before I got to grad school, people thought there wasn't anything interesting happening at mid latitudes, say over the United States. But eventually they got funding to build some SuperDarn radars down in the United States, like down in Virginia they started, and they got that funding on the premise that when there was a geomagnetic storm, the auroral oval would move equatorward and they would need that radar to capture it. But what they found was when they installed these mid-latitude radars, there was actually interesting physics that they were able to see with the radar that they didn't predict. So I think similarly with the magnetometers, if we start putting these things out there, we have the chance to see, someplace where we haven't really looked a lot before. And I think the other thing that's worth noting is that sometimes, sometimes people put things one or two instruments out there, a few instruments. There's a handful of magnetometers throughout the continental United States. But when you only have a couple of them, sometimes it's hard to see patterns. But if you have, say, like, tens or hundreds of data points across, a geographic area, it becomes a lot easier to see the patterns and have them pop out. So I think there's a lot of merit to trying to create this network.
One good example that I always make is the movie Twister. I don't know if you have seen this movie Twister. Anyone?
Yes.
Many times.
Where is it? Is it Alabama or it's
no, it's like Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay. The Storm Chasers. Yeah, that's the idea that I always think of. That's the idea that I always try to compare. Instead of looking at the tornado at single point, what they were trying to do is to put like small, it's a tennis ball size sensors into the tornado to see the patterns of they were able to reconstruct the structure of the twister, which is tornado, I guess, right? The same idea is happening at NASA too. They are sending like multiple spacecraft into space so that they can see things more systematically instead of just sending one big expensive spacecraft into space, because sometimes you want to have multi-point observations. So that's the target that we are pursuing right now. Let's have.
There are tornadoes in space too, but we can't image them except when they are visible, as in Aurora.
Well, there is some type of tornado thing in space too. I mean, that's just terminology.
Well, it's just vortices happen in space weather, even more so than down here. But
interestingly, if you have multiple magnetometers and then reconstruct the pattern, you can actually see vertical structure too. It's not really the tornado vortex, but it's a vertical structure that is caused by some kind of current system that is established between the space and the ground. So that can be done only with multiple magnetometers. You cannot see that from one single magnetometer. So let's have closely spaced magnetometers. That's why we are really pursuing the a large scale close spaced magnetometer array, as well as the other. I mean, SuperDot has the same direction.
Hillman, how close? What kind of mesh would you need to actually resolve a geomagnetic vortical structure?
It depends on the latitude, but say mid latitude, I'd like to see maybe like every degree, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So 36, 37, 38, something like that.
I would say there'd be structure at any level that you can image.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, every 60 miles, which would be degree worth.
Yeah, that would be.
But that would see a lot more than what we can see now.
Mm.
I noticed Scotty is visible.
Oh, yes. Maybe he can speak.
Can you hear
Oh,
me?
he has
can hear you
Yes.
too.
He speaks.
Yeah, damn Windows update. It updated my USB controller and killed off everything that was plugged into it.
Oh, geez.
So anyway, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Now maybe I can actually program some boards, since the
Yay.
USB capacitors are all plugged into USB ports that don't work.
So you checked the power supplies, you said, and you checked the you have like the test code ready. So
yeah, I've got test code ready to load into the board, and I tried loading it, and I got JTAG chain not found.
Hmm.
And then I went back to my old board that I was working on before, and it JTAG chain not found.
And so that was all the USB problem.
Yeah, and then I went and borrowed another USB, a brand new USB blaster from my business partner. Tried that. USB ports not found. I mean, JTAG ports not found. So then I'm thinking, oh, this is suspicious that, you know, none of them work all of a sudden. And so now I just got the camera back that was plugged into a USB port. So I'm trying a download here, but so far it's not finding the USB blaster. But that's just because I've been fooling around, deleting them and reinstalling them and deleting them, and it's been deleted now. So I have to go and reinstall it, and I'm crossing my fingers that it'll work. Because I think these boards, all the DC voltages look good. So barring some unfortunate thing, the board should pass.
I'm crossing my fingers, Scotty.
So you and me both. I'm going to have to move to Cayman Islands or something with no internet.
I'm crossing my fingers.
And actually, if I moved to Caymans without internet, it would be kind of like this Zoom session with no audio or video. It's like,
I'll find you an HF.
Typing is really slow.
I take it you're on Windows 11?
No, I'm on Windows 10.
Really?
But I made this
Well,
dumb
that's
mistake.
screwing with your drivers.
Well, I don't know why it came up with a driver with an update. And every time I've ever updated a driver from Microsoft instead of from the chip manufacturer, it's always bombed off. The last time I did it with the Ethernet, and all of a sudden I have no network anymore. So that became a real big problem. So I'm not updating anything that works anymore. So it's really irritating, especially when it worked yesterday and it doesn't work today.
I would say use a Mac, but they've changed the chip on us.
Oh, they did?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm still on an Intel Mac, but they've got their own chip now.
Oh, that's right.
They got M1 and the M2.
M1 and M2 ARM processors.
I want a 32-core Ryzen. But I'm too cheap to spend.
They say that Windows will run on the Apple Silicon, but I haven't seen it.
Well, the Ryzen processor is, the last I checked, which is about almost a year ago, it was $2,500 for the processor, and there was only one motherboard it ran on, and it was $2,500. So you're talking about $5,000 is your entry level, and that doesn't even include any memory or any video card or anything like that.
Scotty?
Yeah.
Do you have any magboard sets that you can send out, or are they all in Tapper's hand now?
I have about 4 or 5 sets here that I have kind of held back for researchers.
Okay, well, N5BRG, who's on here, Bob is looking. I was going to send him the set you sent me, but if you've got a set that you might be able to send him, he would certainly appreciate it.
Okay, hold on. I'm really behind. Who was the guy that was on here a couple of weeks ago that was looking to build the package, the enclosure for us?
That was Dylan.
Has he been back since? Because I haven't.
Yeah, he was here last week or last time we were at a meeting.
Been derelict. I have to send him the info on the physical.
He's in the process of moving from California to Tennessee.
Okay, so he's kind of tied up right now.
Well, he was still in California the last we talked to him.
Okay, so Jules, who is it that wants the?
Me.
Bob, why don't you speak up? Yeah.
Bob, N5BRG. I'll send you a chat message, Scotty, with my address and everything, if that works, or I'll send you.
Okay, email is better if you can do that.
What email do I use?
WA2DFI@ARRL.net works just fine.
Okay.
So it's really easy. And then I'll send you back my real email address, which is almost as easy, but.
Okay, I'll send it there in just a few minutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I need to go. My wife's not feeling well tonight, so.
Oh, I hope she feels better.
I've got an early morning dental appointment. I've got to head out too.
Yeah.
I have an NSF report I have to file.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, maybe that's important.
One other question on the meeting on Friday. Is that something other people can monitor too, or is that a?
I'm certainly open to it. If Yeoman and Bill are welcome to letting other people join.
if we don't ask a bunch of questions, we just watch and listen.
Yeah, no problem.
You can ask questions too. It's fine with me. Just put your email in the chat and I'll send you an invite.
What time would that be?
Let me see. It's like 4 p.m. Eastern, I think.
On Friday?
Yeah. So if anyone wants to be on it, just send me an email. I'll add you to the invite list.
Yeah, add me to it. I might be able to get on.
Right.
Yeah, same here.
Yes. Let's see. So I've got David. I'll add Jules. I'll add Dave Witten in case he's interested, because he's a very magnetometer type of person. And then let's see, we've got Bob Strickland.
When is this on Friday?
This is a discussion on Friday at 4 p.m. about basically about what we're doing with the magnetometers and the website, how we're going to be visualizing magnetometer data on the website and improving the process for registering the user experience.
Okay, that's 4 p.m. Eastern?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you can send me an invite. I don't know if I'll be able to make it, but things are crazy around here.
You are on. So send updates to. Okay, all of you should now have a calendar invite. So, all right, that sounds great. Jonathan, are you there?
I am here. Did I miss my spot?
Yeah, you did. They called you before, but I know you were. Yeah, we did call you, but I think you were stepped away or your system wasn't working or something. So if you want to go, if you want to say something, and then if you want, I can talk to you about your VLF stuff for a little bit before I go.
Sure. Sorry about that. This week was a fairly busy week for me. I sent an updated email to the list with the sample. A recording of the chorus event that happened December 27th. That was the peak of it, where it is the loudest. I also sent some spectrograms showing that this event had frequency components that extended up to 7 kilohertz, which was exciting because normally you don't see that. Normally it's between 2 to 4 kilohertz. But this was a very, very, very nice chorus event. I also would like to report that this is a first for the VLF system that is installed at Nathaniel's QTH. It has received its first amateur transmission. Yeah, this is quite exciting. It used the amateur was DL3JMM, an amateur in Germany, who uses an Earth probe antenna. And this time he was able to route his wiring so the antenna radiated more west. So it actually, the carrier reached the receiver in Springbrook, and it also it reached a receiver in Forest, Virginia. It was a modulated carrier using coherent BPSK to send a 5-character message. There was not enough signal to noise ratio for a decode. However, the carrier was seen. I will. So yeah, I just want to show it quick here. Where was that? I believe this was share. So this is a narrowband spectrogram of the carrier. You can see that it's just peaking above the noise floor. However, it was still seen and still present. It was just a little bit too low to be decoded. However, there was a real cool technique that was implemented with the VBLI, where the message was, so the spectrum from Forest, Virginia, and also our receiver was correlated. And that added enough signal to noise ratio and got the power up just enough for the message to be decoded. So this is really exciting. We're using multiple receivers from multiple locations and correlating both of their spectrums to be able to get a coherent BPSK decode. I'm currently working on getting a decode from the receiver itself, and I'm just barely missing it. So what I'm attempting to do is to stack multiple recordings. So DL3 JMM also does, when he does his transmissions, he does transmission campaigns, which consists of multiple messages. And what you can do is, if one message, well, so the same text is sent through the message through each message, and what you can do is you can stack multiple transmissions on top of each other, so they basically add, and that will give you enough signal to noise ratio to be able to code a message. That technique has been used with larger character messages. One example was a 9-character message where 3 stacks were used to able to achieve a decode. So this is very exciting for VLF amateur radio, and I'm working to try to get a decode, because that would be a very exciting first. Other than that, that's all I have. Back to the net.
That sounds great, Jonathan. I see Harry just jumped in here. Hello, Harry. How are you?
Hey, Daniel.
It's been a long time. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm currently back home in China.
Nice.
So, yeah, just curious what's going on here about the ham site. I saw the Zoom link, so I just
Oh, thanks. Well, first, I guess I'll just introduce you to everyone. So Harry was a student at Virginia Tech when I was a graduate student there. And so I guess he's back in China now at his home. And so I haven't heard from him in about 4 or 5 years. So it's nice to hear you again. So we're doing fine here. We're trying to develop a new software-defined radio called the TangerineSDR. And so we have we have prototypes of that developed now, which are in the process of being tested and integrated. So we have physical boards, but they're not really usable as radios yet. But we're doing that testing and integration and FPGA software development now. And then we also have a project where people are developing a low-cost magnetometer system, and that system is operational. We have probably about 7 or 10 people have those currently running, and we have a production run of about 250 boards that have been made up that we're getting ready to sell in the Tapper store. And then Jonathan, who you just heard, he is interested in VLF radio, natural radio. And so he's been working on a VLF receiver for that. So that's what we're up to.
Great. That'd be great. And yeah, because I'm currently in China, so if you're trying to set up any station, I can support locations where I currently live. I have a balcony to set up sort of equipment.
That would be great. There's I forget what is there's a WWV equivalent in China.
Yeah. It runs on 5 megahertz, 10 megahertz, and 15 megahertz, I think.
Okay, because we have a project that is being developed by Case Western Reserve University, which is just listening to the HF Doppler shifts from WWV. So that might be useful with you might be able to use that in China, listening to your local WWV equivalent.
Yeah, I've actually heard that here. The Chinese time station on 10 megahertz.
Which I think that brings up the continuously interesting question of, how do you disambiguate between all these different signals? And that is kind of a trick.
Well, it would be by modulation.
Yeah. I think we have some pretty good insight into disambiguating between WWV and WWVH, but I think we haven't really considered the other stations too much.
Yeah, well, like the Brazil station has the every 10-second tick. You can distinguish that.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to decode the sidebands over the carrier itself.
Yeah. I agree. Well, that sounds good. So I think I did tell Jonathan, did you want to ask any questions about the VLF stuff for the Hamsci workshop before I get off for the night?
Yeah, so I believe everything is, I have a good idea of everything that I want to present. But is there anything specific to the poster that you want me to put on there?
Do you have, I'm not sure, do you have the poster, the presentation, a draft of it made yet?
No, nothing's made yet, but what I had planned with the poster was I was going to kind of summarize a year of operation of the VLF receiver, and also include the stacked plots of great data and VLF transmitter data. It was basically going to be like a key points summary of my presentation.
Do you think you could make a draft of that, of what you're going to say, either put it into a poster or into a regular PowerPoint, and then share it at next week's meeting or the week after or something like that, and then we can see what we need to add or change or come up with an outline?
Yeah, I'll come up with the outline. I'm in the process of getting all my figures and all my audio samples and everything ready in place for display. So yeah, I will get that. I will get that to you next week or the week after. And what would be the deadline to submit the poster for printing?
Probably about early March, probably like March 10th or something.
Okay. So, well, then there's still enough time. Okay, I will keep that in mind.
Yeah. So what I would say is, if you want to show us an outline or a draft sooner rather than later, then I can give some feedback and other people here can give feedback, and then we can iterate that way.
Okay. Sounds good. Other than that, I don't have any more questions unless you have any more feedback for me.
I think that's good. I think usually with these posters, you want to have some sort of a science question or a point that you're trying to make, a research question or research objective. So do you have one in mind?
Well, it was going to be, it was basically going to be the, it was basically going to be of the format of what you can do with the data received, you know, with the data that you get from one of these systems, the science use cases for the data from these systems.
Well, why don't you start out with what you have in mind, and then we'll see how it looks, and then, you know, if we have more feedback, then we'll be able to give you some.
Okay, sounds good.
That sounds really good.
All right, that's all I have.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry, are you doing well in China?
Yeah, I'm currently working as a satellite system engineer here in China.
Great.
And I'm still doing amateur radio as Bravo Hotel 3 Delta Bravo Foxtrot.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you get on HF at all?
Yeah. Since last year, 2022, I finally have a balcony to set up a HF antenna. So I do a lot of FT8 last year. I got 100 DXCC. A span of 6 months to get 100 DXCC NPT.
That's great. That's really wonderful.
And where at in China? Where are you in China?
I'm currently in Beijing. So it's Oscar Mike 89.
Alpha Mike, what was it? What location again?
Oscar Mike 89, Charlie X-ray.
Okay. And your Chinese call was Baker Hotel 3 Baker Foxtrot?
Bravo Hotel 3 Delta Bravo Foxtrot.
Okay, Delta Bravo Foxtrot. Okay, thank you.
Bob, I just saw your message. Would you mind explaining this in more detail?
Yeah, the concept that I was saying that's fascinating to me about the work that's going on here is the sensitivity of the detectors required to pick up the magnetic field of the Earth and have interesting scientific data. When most magnetic sensors that are used like in automotive applications or other places are using much stronger fields because the magnets are close by. So anybody in your audience that might be trying to compare what's going on here to something else they've worked with or seen would not appreciate the level of sensitivity here. And so like a sensor for a car would be more than 10,000 times less sensitive, I'll say, okay? So it's a pretty difficult task to detect a magnetic field so weak that we're trying to pick up.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, the sensitivity, resolution, noise level have been the main topics for the magnetometry world so that we can detect like really, really subtle change in magnetic fields. So yeah, as you mentioned, the other, typical magnetic sensor applications where, say micro Tesla range is sufficient enough, say, like, as you mentioned, many times the Earth magnetic field, for example, the magnetic sensor in our smartphone is much more crude than any other magnetometer that we use for scientific applications for space physics. We are talking about at least a couple of nanotesla, whereas the Earth magnetic field is in the range between plus minus 60,000 nanotesla. that is still much smaller than any typical applications in engineering world, where much bigger field is needed to detect this type of magnetic anomaly. So we are talking about really subtle change in the magnetic field. That is why, first, the sensor has to be sensitive enough to detect, but also the location is very important. So you cannot have this type of sensor operations in the backyard of, say, Manhattan, for example. You like to have some electromagnetically clean area. So this type of thing is already mentioned in the manual. And yes, this has to be emphasized more and more, by comparing this type of application to any other typical engineering applications. So,
well, but you're not talking about electronic compasses then, because I mean, what you have in your phone and what we have are electronic compasses. They're sensitive to a half a Gauss field of the Earth. What
correct.
you're really talking about is the noise level that we want lower than what most electronic compasses are giving you.
Yeah, you're correct. Yes. Yeah, the sensitivity and the noise characteristics. So that we can detect subtle change in magnetic field. However, it also depends on the scientific topics. For some research topics, we'd like to see very subtle changes in geospace. For example, for those who want to look at wave activity, for example, ULF wave, ultra low frequency wave, or a little bit higher frequency range, ELF waves. Those are smaller than, sometimes even in space, if you actually send the sensor into space, even the location where this type of activity is going on, you really have to have a magnetic sensor that is sensitive to less than nanotesla, like sub nanotesla. Now we're talking about measurement on the ground after this type of signal goes through ionosphere, where this signal is much more attenuated. So we're talking even picotesla or something. But we're not doing that type of research right now. We're trying to look at space weather related event, which is much bigger, including geomagnetic storms or substorms. That involves, say, hundreds or even thousands nanotesla. So in that case, this sensitivity level and noise level of this very magnetic sensor that we are dealing with is sufficient. So this is not superior to any other scientific instrument that is installed by professional institute, but it is good enough to look at this type of big event.
But on the other hand, it is at the level that we will fly on as instrumentation on sounding rockets and such, and even on spacecraft.
Spacecraft magnetometer can be, yeah, I guess those are.
Well, we were,
better.
I'm involved with the Aero and Vista CubeSats, and we were going to fly RM3100 originally, and then I forget what the difficulty was, but we went to a Honeywell, but it's similar sensitivity.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe their science target is to look at some big events.
The point is, though, that you're talking about something that's very, very sensitive compared to a lot of other magnetic field applications.
Well, it's not, the point I'm trying to make, it's not the sensitivity, it's the noise floor.
Noise, yes.
Well, the noise floor.
Now what you're talking about, Hillman, is the ULF and ELF waves. Generally, they'll use coils rather than what we are using, a DC sensitive system. And so the DC field is nulled out. It's not sensitive to it. And you're just picking up the changes. by magnetic induction.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also something we may want to consider down the road.
Now,
but for now,
that's another approach that I've actually been working on myself. I've got a system that I built that I haven't got all the parts yet because of part shortage, but using coils to detect the field. So it'd be just a differential monitoring.
Right. I mean, we've flown search coils on rockets, and I know Mark Lassard does a lot of groundwork, and as well as sounding rockets with that.
Okay, it sounds like you've got it covered anyway for your talk. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but those are very important comments. So yeah, thank you for asking.
Yeah, well, for instance, you know, what we're working on is a VLF card for Tangerine. Its response could be extended to low frequencies. We might be able to interface it with search coils.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But for now, let's.
But for now, yeah, that's down the road.
For some low-hanging fruits first.
Yeah, the RM3100 doesn't do too badly. I mean, it compares fairly well to a Bardington.
Hmm.
I mean, it's maybe an order of magnitude higher noise, but that's still not bad.
That's good to know. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this sensor is amazing in the sense that it's much cheaper, but it performs well enough for our purpose. So,
and it does. I mean, you can average multiple sensors. So even if you have a bunch of people in a neighborhood that want to have it, you could average them.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking specifically the cluster in Massachusetts.
Hmm.
I guess we've got a lot of grapes in Massachusetts. Nothing says we can't stick them with magnetometers too.
Do we have grapes in Massachusetts?
Yeah, there's a large cluster of grapes,
okay.
You know, clustered around a haystack.
I see.
Okay, I'm going to check out, guys. See you next time.
All right, see you.
A question. You're talking about maybe getting a neighborhood group of these together and averaging them. Is this something that what do you call them? One of these distributed systems where, oh gosh, I can't think of the name right now, senior moment, I guess. But the amateur radio, pardon?
You thinking mesh network?
Yeah, mesh network. Is this where a mesh network would come in handy? I'm looking for some kind of a way to justify the club investing in a mesh network. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it, but I'm just looking for some ideas.
So you're talking about mesh network applications for magnetometer observations?
Yeah, to any kind of observations like this where you want to average out data or combine data.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought that then you would be able to upload an average, averaged data rather than having all of them report and then averaging it on the server.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, scientifically, let's say, I'm not saying this number is correct, but let's say scientifically 1 degree spacing is good enough. But let's say you have much more spaced array around your neighbor, then you can report one representative data after you average data, so that you can have 1 degree spacing, but within 1 degree you can have multiples of magnetometers. That's an interesting thought.
Okay, just an idea. Like I say, one of our members is really keen on setting up a mesh network, and I haven't found a real good way to do that or a really good use for it other than maybe emergency communications.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thought. You know, it's, especially I like the idea of like averaging, you know, close by, nearby magnetometers so that we can improve the performance.
Well, someone mentioned having clusters of grapes in Massachusetts. Very roughly, how big an area would this cluster be?
Well, I know that the one I'm talking about, there are a lot of people that are in the haystack area. You know, it's eastern Massachusetts.
Okay.
So there are multiple people interested in that area.
So maybe you're talking an area of a small town?
Several towns.
Okay.
So maybe a 20-mile radius, just ballpark.
Yeah, well, you can certainly set up a mesh to handle that if you're reasonably flat. My problem is the terrain is incredible here. I have no horizon. I'm surrounded by trees.
Well, this isn't dependent on horizon.
Yeah. Okay, just throwing out ideas and asking questions.
We're talking low frequency magnetic field activity.
Right. And I'm sure that's something of interest to probably a number of people.
Yeah, then please, pursue that direction. I guess the more the better, I guess. I mean,
yeah, I'm trying to kind of say that we don't want to discourage people from installing magnetometers with their stations. There's a reason to have more in even a small geographic location.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is interesting approach, like having many magnetometers around it so that we can average it or do some noise characterization to improve the quality.
And it would allow people to get a check on their individual instruments.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Very good point.
Does anybody have any experience with mesh networks? Well, I see a lot of heads shaking no. Okay, thank you.
No, I know a lot of people who are talking about them.
No, I just sent you a message. There are a lot of mesh networks installed in the US. The name is called Arden, AREDN.
Right.
And you can add a node to an existing network for pretty low cost. If you find a used node, you're talking maybe $50. There, we have 400 plus nodes scattered in Oregon talking to each other. So the incremental cost is not very high. And they provide computer Ethernet connectivity. So you can, the magnetometer data sets are probably pretty small from an individual magnetometer. And so it's something that would easily flow on one of those mesh networks, probably without any custom engineering.
I have a problem in the second largest county in the country, 18,000 some square miles. We could stuff a bunch of states into this thing, but it's very low population density. So we do not have easy access to other mesh networks. We have to pretty much set up our own.
Okay.
But anyway, good ideas, good thoughts. And it's something to consider. I hadn't thought about that, but that's something to really consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nathaniel, please add me to that list. I don't know if I'll be able to make it on Fridays, but please add me to the list.
Sure, I'd be glad to, Joe.
And just w7lux@arrl.net or my other one, if you already have that. Nova@npgcable.com.
Let's see. Hold on. I'm bringing up the thing to add you to there.
My problem is I live on a rock pile I can't even get an 8-foot ground rod in more than about 18 inches.
W7LUX@ARRL.net.
Sounds like New Hampshire.
Well, it sure is a problem here. I've got big outcroppings. In fact, one of the thoughts was to take and glue a magnetometer or somehow fasten a magnetometer to one of those big chunks of rock in my on my lot. These are big pieces of outcropping. Many, many, many tons of rock. But then I wouldn't have the temperature stability, and right now things are crazy.
Yeah, around here the glaciers took the soil and took it all south. So bedrock's pretty close.
Yeah, I don't think that got this far. I don't know. Did it get as far as northern Arizona? I don't remember.
No,
I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
You're rocky for a different reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Sitting on a lava flow almost. They have a big volcano about 15, 20 miles north of here. Is extinct volcano.
We're sitting on volcanoes, but that was about 150 million years ago.
Oh, this was 2 or 3 million.
I'm sitting here quietly because I'm just copying and pasting things into the NSF report over here.
Multitasking, huh?
Yeah. I ended up, for a lot of these sections, you're only allowed 8,000 characters. 8,000 characters is actually quite a bit to write. But apparently Word counts the characters slightly differently than their website does. So there was one section where I was like, I had to somehow get rid of 167 characters. And that was annoying.
Oh, yeah.
I did it, but it's kind of like, how many bits can you remove before the message doesn't mean the same thing?
In some cases, very few.
I know. I did things like change the word postdoctoral research associate to just postdoc. So. And I changed things like University of Scranton to U Scranton.
Tricks of the trade.
If it lets me submit it, I'll be happy. I remember like one paper I wrote that had a tight word count. Like on the last day, I was like abbreviating every single thing I possibly could.
So how much interest is there in a very low frequency sensor? The magnetometer is probably not that.
So low frequency magnetometer are you talking about?
Well, you were talking about low frequency waves.
Talking like ULF.
It is the one of the most important space weather, space physics related phenomena in the field. So that's usually falls into ULF range. It sounds kind of interesting, kind of funny to the engineers who always deal with like really high frequency. This is the other side of the frequency spectrum, really, really slow, minutes.
I would also point out that when you talk about ULF waves, you're often talking about just waves in the magnetic field, not necessarily electromagnetic like radio waves. So usually when people say VLF waves, they're usually thinking of like very low frequency electromagnetic radio waves. But when you say ULF waves, you're usually talking about magnetic field waves only.
Yeah, well, we're talking subhertz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason they're important is it's what knocks particles out of the radiation belts.
Okay.
Part of the the solar wind, ULF waves in the solar wind cause precipitation out of the radiation belts. And it's a very active field of study right now.
So you can think of as a motion of plasma carried by magnetic field. So this type of motion or wave activity is important in a sense that it can actually transport particles or scatter particles in the magnetosphere and ionosphere. That is why this is one of the most important, space physics related phenomena that a lot of probably most space physicists at some point work on ULF waves in their field. So how much of interest? I mean, this is just one of the things that people should look into, especially if you're in the space physics field, ULF waves. And I know even Nathaniel, one of his papers, talked about ULF wave signatures in Superdun radar signatures.
My very first paper.
Yes, I do remember.
Yes. I know. I actually know something about being a magnetospheric physicist.
I mean, it's everywhere. It's that kind of frequency is everywhere. So
and my wife Rachel is also working on a magnetospheric ULF wave project.
Right.
Which she has a discussion about tomorrow with Andy at 2 p.m.
Cool. So yeah, that is why probably I'm right. All of the magnetometers for space physics research is tuned to that frequency range, low frequency in ULF. So I guess it's close to DC. I mean, it's basically DC, and slightly high enough to catch like slightly higher frequency in the ULF wave range. Sometimes we look at frequencies in the range of higher side of ULF range that falls into, say, hertz, 1 hertz, sometimes 2 hertz. But
yeah, it's like the range between hertz and millihertz.
Okay.
I submitted my project report.
Congrats.
I'm no longer delinquent.
Okay, I missed some of the discussion because I was running in. They're shutting off the repeater for a specific reason. We still don't have power back on the mountain. And it may not be on until tomorrow or the next day. But what instrument would detect these ultra low frequency waves? Would the magnetometer that this group is working on do that, or would it take a different?
If it were very large, yes, but generally they're being detected with very large coils.
But the millihertz range, ULF waves can be detected by, typical magnetometers, which includes flux gate, but also even this RM3100 could detect some of the, I mean, if the ULF wave is big enough, then can be detected.
Joe, also not really related to electromagnetic phenomena, but ground motion, earthquakes, the low frequency components of earthquakes and microseisms, when ocean waves crash against the shore, those are also in the ULF range, but you use special ground sensors to actually detect those. But just as an analogy, seismic waves are often in the ULF range as well. And some of the seismic filters that I have are sensitive to ULF frequency ranges. I just ordered a seismograph that is sensitive from 1 hertz to 60 seconds. So those are very, very low end of the ULF range, just to give you an idea.
Yes, correct. Some of the ULF wave range overlaps with the magnetic field disturbances caused by seismic activity. So that is probably Hertz range. There is a paper, I mean, there's some research area where, they look at magnetometer data to see, Earth interior activity that is associated with seismic activity. So yeah, that's true too. So sometimes you look at the wave activity and you don't really know whether that's coming from space or from the interior of the Earth. And also, we had a series of magnetometers, latitudinally located magnetometers in Svalbard, and that actually detected like propagation of seismic activity simply because the magnetometer was just sensitive to the vibration, to physical vibration, and it was located like latitudinally, like one located in low latitude and one located middle latitude and high latitude, and then you can see the propagation of seismic activity all the way from low to high, simply because the what do you call it? The point of the earthquake. Oh my God, I cannot.
Epicenter.
Yeah, epicenter was located like southward of the magnetometer chain, so you can see like clear propagation from low to high latitude detected by the magnetometers. But like that has nothing to do with the wave activity. It just has to do with just physical vibration.
Sounds like a good bunch of data for a very good paper.
Yeah, I mean, those are our magnetometers, and then Norwegians working at Svalbard, asked about did you guys see anything interesting from your magnetometers? And then sure, yeah, you can see the bang. So
well, I'm sure the Tonga explosion showed up in that.
Yeah, what explode
the Tonga explosion? What was that? 2 years ago now?
A
year ago.
Was it Tonga, the island over?
Yeah, that's the underwater one that was so powerful.
I think the anniversary was just very recently.
Yeah, they've been talking about it in the news, but they said something about 300 meters of ocean floor disappeared or something like that.
It was pretty powerful.
It was a year ago yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is the anniversary of it.
Time flies.
There is
kidding.
There's another interesting studies about like earthquake. So earthquake creates tsunami, and tsunami creates a vertical motion of the sea water. And the sea water contains a lot of salt, which is conducting. So if you have conducting medium that is going around, that causes field. That field can be detected by magnetometers. So that's also another interesting aspect.
And it does actually couple to the ionosphere.
Yes.
So we're all connected.
The hip bone's connected to the.
Yeah, even animals, they go crazy or they get stranded or they get lost, because whenever there's the one scenario theory is that whales or pigeons who rely on magnetic field for their navigation, they get stranded or get lost during geomagnetic storms or substorms because, oh my God, they cannot really detect the magnetic field line properly. So
when they had that big tsunami in the Indian Ocean, I heard stories that animals suddenly panicked and ran uphill or away from the ocean while people looked out and walked out to see what was going on.
Yes, animals are smart. People are stupid.
The animals survived.
That's correct.
I'm going to say good night, everyone. I got my report submitted. Thank you.
Good night, Nathaniel.
Good night.
Thanks,
Nathaniel.
everyone. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
I got to take off too.
Right.
Yep.
See you, Bob. See you.